Hello everyone, welcome back. I am really excited to be filming today. But for those of you who were regular viewers of my channel, you know that I haven't filmed anything in about 2 months. There are so many reasons for that, but I am back today. I'm just gonna kind of let you guys know why I haven't filmed in about 2 months. Just kind of a brief overview. I'm not gonna go into a bunch of detail because most of it's pretty boring, but I am also going to be doing my April wrap up and my May wrap up all in one video. So let's just jump right into stuff. So the first thing that I want to address is obviously, where the heck have I been? So basically the first thing that happened, and this just kind of created the snowball effect. So the first thing that happened was I threw out my back. I was putting on pants, okay, getting ready to go to work, and I threw out my back, and it was terrible. So I was pretty much laid up for a couple of days, and I filmed upstairs, and going up and down the stairs wasn't really agreeing with me. And the way that I have to do filming is because I work a full-time job, which a lot of people on BookTube do, but the way that works best for me is that on my off days, I pre-film a few things so that I constantly have content going up. Well, that threw off literally everything. I had 3 days in a row that I was off, and during those 3 days I was laid up, couldn't do anything, and then immediately went back to work for 5 days. And then my husband and I were out to lunch on one of my lunch breaks, and he's like, listen, you're really stressed out because of a couple of other things that were happening, you know, in my life. And he said, you need to take a PTO day, and we need to just go somewhere. We need to go to the beach, go somewhere, whatever. This is the end of April, mind you. So that's what we ended up doing. We spent 3 days at Tybee Island in Georgia, and it was wonderful. And it really kind of like let me recharge. And since then, things have just been crazy. Like, there were a couple of things that happened in my job, and so my work schedule changed, and so I've been working 7-8 days in a row before actually getting a day off. So on that day off, I have a million things that I have to do, and so it just didn't really, like, nothing really came together the way that I wanted it to. In addition to that, we got a new cat. He's not going to be on camera today. So if any of you are cat people and you've ever introduced a new cat to a cat that's already established, we've been dealing with that. And so that's been fun. I say it's been fun, like it's been bad, but it really hasn't. It's actually been really easy, and they're getting along really well. So I have a new baby, so that's that. You know, and just aside from that, really trying to find a new rhythm with just the way that things have been going. Really trying to establish some of the pre-existing routines that I had, like, you know, meal planning, and, you know, really trying to get my health back where it needs to be. And so because of that, while I've still been reading, actually like filming and editing and uploading did take a back seat there for a little while. So, you know, that's just kind of where I'm at. But I seem to have, like I said, reestablished that rhythm. So my plan going forward is to actually have regular content for you guys again. So, okay. I have this terrible backpack tan line from where I went into the woods today. Oh, it's so bad. It's so bad. All right, so let's just jump right in and talk about books. The last video that was on my channel was my Tome Topple TBR. And I did do Tome Topple, and I did complete it, and I read all the books that I set out to read except for one book, which I still finished. I just didn't finish it in time to actually, I guess, you know, have it count for Tome Topple. But I will get into the actual books for Tome Topple because there were a couple that I actually read before I started Tome Topple. So let's backtrack to the beginning of April. So the first book that I read in April was Wizard and Glass, Stephen King. This is book 4 in the Dark Tower series, and this book is probably my favorite book in the series, I would have to say. This story is told through flashbacks, so we learn a lot more about our main character, Roland the Gunslinger. You know, there's a lot of things that happen in this book, and I just love it. It is emotionally exhausting, but it is an excellent book. But you are going to be seeing the rest of the Dark Tower series in this video because I did actually finish the series yesterday, and we'll talk about that in a little while. But 5-star read, excellent, love it. The next book that I read was Heartless by Marissa Mayer. I have never read anything by this author before. She is the author of the Lunar Chronicles, which I hear a lot of people talk about. This was a buddy read with Jasmine from Novel Thoughts and Clara. I will link their channels down below. This was a 3-star book for me. It wasn't, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't great. The writing was decent. This, if you can't tell. It is the backstory for the Queen of Hearts and Alice in Wonderland. I had a lot of problems with some of the things in the book. Not problematic content, let me be clear about that, but just like, you know, use of plot devices and the way that the characters were written. You know, it was decent and it was fluffy, so it wasn't anything too deep. Most people that I've talked to have loved this. If you're interested in it, then I would definitely say pick it up. So now we are actually going to get into the books that I read for Tome Topple. Tome Topple is basically what it sounds like. Your goal is to read books that are over 500 pages. So I have several of those. So the first of those books is April+May by Jay Kristoff and Amy Kaufman. And I actually did like this book a lot more than I thought that I was going to. It is told in a very different format than most other books are told. It is kind of mixed media. So it's kind of done through like chat transcripts and emails and, you know, captain's logs and, you know, whatever else. It does take place in space. It is a science fiction adventure. I had heard a lot of people rave about it and I was kind of on the fence. I wasn't sure if I was actually going to enjoy it or not, but I actually really did end up liking it. And even though I have my own issues with the author, I actually do want to read Gemina because I've been told that Gemina is even better than April+May. So I think that I still ended up giving it 3 stars though. You know, I liked it. I didn't love it. I'm kind of like, I don't know. I didn't love it enough to give it 4 stars, but I didn't dislike it enough to give it anything less than 3, if that makes any sense at all. So there's that. And the next book, which was also for Tome Topple, this was one that I didn't actually have on my TBR originally, but as soon as I finished Wizard and Glass, I just immediately needed to dive right back into the world of the Dark Tower. So I went ahead and picked up Wolves of the Kala. So there were a lot of things that happened in here. It's not my favorite book of the series. It's still 5 stars just because I love it so much. I'm that person that even though this is not the strongest book in the series, it's still gonna get 5 stars from me because I love this series and I love this author and that kind of thing. Loved it. And the next book that I'm going to talk about is East of Eden by John Steinbeck. I read this in conjunction with Jess and Christina from over at Game of Tomes, and I loved this book. This is, you can see from like all of my tabs and stuff, this book was excellent. If you are afraid of classic literature, this is definitely a book that you need to read. There are so many layers to this book and there's so many layers to the character. It's really hard to talk about without giving too much away because there is a lot that's going on. So I don't want to talk about it too much. But just as a sidebar, one of the coolest things about reading this for me personally, number one, was the conversations that Jess, Christina, and I had about it were so good, and it made me really think about it and it made me appreciate the story even more. Second of all, this copy is actually my mom's, and so she read it however many years ago and had highlighted and underlined and tabbed, you know, dog-eared some pages based on, you know, the things that she thought were important. So I was able to, while I was reading it, go through and see the things that she thought were important. And that experience for me was super, super cool. But this book is absolutely excellent. This is in my top contenders for favorite classics that I've ever read. So if you are intimidated by this book, don't be. It is excellent. The next book that I read, or actually listened to, was The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. This book ended up getting 3 stars for me, and there are honestly a lot of different reasons that happened. I got about halfway through the book and I was like, all right, I feel like we could have gotten to where we are with, you know, 50 less pages or whatever. There were just certain things that I found to be super long-winded, and I did not connect with the characters in any way, shape, or form. And I honestly felt like the main character, whose name that I don't even remember now, was almost like he was like a sideline character. He would sit from the sidelines and watch things happen to him and then react to them. Even by the end of the book, I didn't really feel like he had come into his own, if that makes any sense. And so I just was kind of, I don't know, I was just left wanting more from it. And the writing was really good, I will say that. If long-winded, the writing was actually very good. But I don't know. I still plan on reading more Donna Tartt because a lot of people do talk about how excellent The Secret History is. So I really want to read that one. But I don't know, I probably wouldn't pick this one up again. The next book that I read was One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest by Kim Kesey, and this was a reread for me. I read this a million years ago when I was in high school, so rereading this book was very, very different, and I definitely enjoyed it a whole lot. I feel like the first time that I read it, there were a lot of things that I missed. There were a lot of things that I didn't pick up on because I was in high school. So I was really glad to be able to have the chance to read it again and really see those things that I missed. I'm pretty sure that I gave this either 4 or 5 stars. And the next book that I have is American War by Omar El Akkad. I'm assuming that I'm saying that name right. Sorry. I actually read this book with Bree Hill, Charles Explosion, and The Baked Book, and I will make sure that I link their channels down below. We were all kind of like reading at our own pace with this. I ended up giving this book 3 stars. It was not exactly what I was expecting it to be. However, there was a lot of, social and political commentary in this that I felt was very relevant to the time that we're living in. And so for that, it was very interesting. I did not really connect with the main character named Sarat in this book. However, I don't feel like we were meant to connect with the character, so I didn't take any stars off because of that. Like I said, there's a lot of political commentary in this based on our current situation. And so for that, it was very interesting to me, and it was very eye-opening in that respect, because one of the things that you kind of get from this book is this is how terrorists are made. And that in particular was incredibly interesting to me. And so that was really the biggest thing that I got from this book. But I mean, it was okay. It wasn't the best book that I've ever read. And I think that the rest of the people that I was reading it with kind of felt the same way. Yeah, I ended up giving it 3 stars. So those were all the books that I read in April. So that was 8 books, 7 in print, 1 in audio. So now we are going to move on to the month of May. So the first thing that I read was actually an audiobook, and that was Christine by Stephen King. Honestly, the reason that I picked this one up had a lot to do with the fact that I kind of needed to give myself a little bit of a break from Dark Tower, but I still wanted to be in the Stephen King universe. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. It was a classic that I had never read before. I've never seen the movie. I really enjoyed the narration on this particular one, I will say that. But it was really nice to like go back to that traditional horror that Stephen King is so well known for. So I really enjoyed it in that respect. So another reason that I had actually not been able to film was me and my best friend took a trip to Atlanta, and we saw one of our favorite bands, Coheed and Cambria. The show was excellent and I loved it. And I remembered while we were there that Claudio Sanchez, who is the vocalist for the band, he owns Evil Inc. comics. And so if you are familiar with Coheed and Cambria even a little bit, you are aware that I believe it's the first 5 or 6 albums that they released were actually this huge concept. They were actually all concept albums following the stories of the main characters, Coheed and Cambria, and it's like this giant space opera. So while we were there, I remembered that this all existed, and that in addition to all of the albums being a concept, Claudio actually wrote and published the Amory Wars. I don't know how you say it, please excuse me. So basically these are just graphic novels, and there's sets of them that are based off of each of the albums. The reason that I'm telling you this is because we got back and I was like, I got all obsessed with their music again and listening and remembering that they were actually graphic novels. I was like, shit, I really want to read these. And I ended up getting the digital copy of Second Stage Turbine Blade, and I also got In Keeping Secrets of Silent Earth 3. I also got Year of the Black Rainbow, and I have the first 2 editions of Good Apollo and Burning Star 4. But the reason that I'm telling you that is because the next thing that I read was the Second Stage Turbine Blade Ultimate Edition, which is the beginnings, the backstory of Coheed and Cambria, and tells the story of that first album. And reading this was such an awesome experience for me because I have loved their music for so many years. And actually getting a visual representation of what this album is about, and like seeing lines of songs and seeing characters mentioned and seeing what those characters look like was so cool. So I absolutely loved it, and I think the Ultimate Edition was over 300 pages because it's all of the issues collected together. and I think that I read it in 2 days. The art was beautiful and I really, really enjoyed it. And also because they're one of my favorite bands and because I'm just obsessed with them, like I also gave them 5 stars. Like, sorry, I'm that person that because it's my favorite, I'm gonna give it 5 stars regardless. So there's that. But I really, really enjoyed it. It was really good. So the next book that I read, going back to books, was Song of Susanna, which is book 6 in the Dark Tower series. I gave this book 5 stars, but it is definitely the weakest in the series for me, in my personal opinion, for a lot of different reasons. However, this particular edition of the book is super cool because this is actually the illustrated edition. So there's a lot of really cool illustrations in here. Just continuing the story of Roland, Jake, Eddie, and Susanna and Oi. I just love this world so much and I love these books. So yeah, I gave this book 5 stars. And after I finished that, I went through and I finished In Keeping Secrets of Silent Earth 3, which is another installment of the Amory Wars. And again, this was the Ultimate Edition and it was all collected. Really enjoyed it, loved it, 5 stars. If you like space drama and if you like this band at all, then you should read them. Okay, so the next book that I finished was book 7 of the Dark Tower series, called The Dark Tower. I have the biggest fucking book hangover because of this series right now. Finishing this series again, because this is the second time that I finished it, and that is saying something, because if you guys have been watching my videos for any length of time, then you know that I'm so bad at finishing series. Like, I'll read the first couple and then I never ended up finishing them, but like I could, once I like really got into reading these books, I could not stop reading them. And I read things in between, but like I kept wanting to go back into this world, and so finishing the book is devastating. Like, I feel empty inside. I don't know what to do with my life. So I finished this book, and obviously it's 5 stars. So I finished this book and I'm like, what the fuck am I gonna do with my life now? Like, I don't know what to do. And then I remembered that I have Wind Through the Keyhole. This book was published several years after the last Dark Tower installment, and so this kind of takes place in between. So this book actually ends up taking place in between book 4 and book 5. So that's where we find Eddie, Roland, Jake, Susanna, and Oi. Well, it's really 2 stories combined into one. I was really glad that I remembered that I had this book because this is actually one that I had not read before, because when I originally got it, when it was first released in 2012, I wanted to read the whole series over again before I jumped back into this, and so this is the first time that I've done that since then. And so I was really glad that I got to actually go through and read this. And this was not a story that was about our quartet of Roland and Jake and Susanna and Eddie, but this was a little bit more information about Roland as a young boy. And the story that Roland tells to his quartet takes place shortly after the events from book 4 in Wizard and Glass. And so we were kind of able to go back to that time. I cried at the end of this book because, number one, it was like really, really over, and also the ending of the book just touched my heart in a way that I can't explain. But I'm hungover. I am so hungover from this book, and actually I was going through like, what am I gonna start now? I have no idea what I'm gonna start now. Like, I'm not ready to leave this world. And so I started thinking about it, and actually the last book of the series, they mentioned the book Insomnia, and I was like, you know what, I actually have that one and I haven't read it yet, so I need to go ahead and start that. So I'm still in the Stephen King universe. I cannot seem to claw my way out of it, and I ain't even mad about it. So those are all the books that I read in April and in May. So like I said, for those of you that are still subscribed and didn't like unsubscribe because I hadn't posted anything in so long, I'm really glad that you're still here. If you made it to the end of this super long video, then thank you so much, and I appreciate you, and I appreciate you watching. For those of you that reached out to me on Twitter and Instagram and left a couple of comments on a couple of videos, you know, asking if everything was okay. I cannot express to you how much I appreciate that. I have so many things to film. I have about 5 zillion book tags that I was tagged in, several of them I am super excited to do. I actually plan on doing a completely separate video talking about just the Dark Tower series in general. There's a lot of things that I want to do. There's a lot of stuff that I want to talk about. But anyway, like I said, thank you for watching to the end of this video. I super appreciate all of you beautiful people. Comment down below and let me know what you thought of any of these books. If this is your first time here and you like what you see and you want to see more, make sure you click subscribe and give this video a big thumbs up. Thank you guys so much for watching today, and I will see you all next time. Bye.